Have you ever wondered why the person who promised to cherish you treats your vulnerability like an open invitation for target practice? You lie in the dark, replaying conversations, searching for the exact moment the warmth turned into ice. It is exhausting, but you are not losing your mind. You are simply waking up to a quiet devastation. There is a specific kind of loneliness that only comes from sharing a bed with someone who uses intimacy as leverage. You feel watched, tested, and quietly measured against an invisible standard you never agreed to. Day after day, you give pieces of your soul away, hoping for a crumb of genuine affection in return. You remember the beginning, of course. It was intoxicating, designed to make you feel like the center of a very bright universe. But the spotlight has shifted, hasn't it? Now you are standing in the shadows of their shifting moods, wondering how warmth turned into a weapon so fast. That whiplash is not an accident. It is the design. We rarely talk about what happens behind closed doors when the mask finally slips. The public sees charm, success, and effortless grace. You see the cold indifference that follows a moment of genuine closeness. It leaves you gasping for air in a room where you should feel safest, questioning your own perception of reality. Think about the last time you tried to express a simple emotional need. Did it turn into a 3-hour trial where you ended up comforting them instead? That is the quiet trap of loving someone whose internal mirror is entirely shattered. Your needs are treated like an inconvenience, while their smallest whim is treated as an emergency. It is time to stop blaming yourself for not fixing a puzzle that was designed to stay broken. You have spent months, maybe years, walking on eggshells in your own home. Every word is filtered. Every reaction is calculated. That is not a relationship. That is emotional survival training disguised as romance. And you deserve so much better. Let us look past the polished social media posts and the public declarations of devotion. The darkest truths live in the quietest hours, where control takes off its daytime disguise. When the lights go out, the psychological games do not rest. They just change shape, moving from subtle digs to a heavy, suffocating pressure. Have you noticed how your confidence has slowly dissolved into a quiet, constant hesitation? You used to trust your gut without a second thought. Now, you run every decision through an internal filter, terrified of triggering an invisible storm. That erosion of self is deliberate, methodical, and profoundly cruel. You are here because a part of you knows something is deeply wrong, even if you have struggled to put it into words. You are tired of the gaslighting, the shifting goalposts, and the hollow apologies that mean absolutely nothing. Tonight, we are naming the darkness so you can finally step out of it. Take a deep breath and let your shoulders drop for a single second. You do not have to defend yourself here, and you do not have to pretend everything is fine. What you experienced was real. The confusion was engineered. And understanding how it works is the first step toward reclaiming your life. To understand why a narcissist approaches intimacy with such distortion, we have to look at their internal void. They do not experience connection the way you do. To them, another human being is not an independent soul to love, but an instrument meant to regulate their fragile self-image. Think of their mind as a leaking vessel that can never actually hold water. No amount of validation, loyalty, or physical devotion will ever be enough to fill the empty space inside them. When you give them your all, you are pouring love into a bottomless pit, wondering why it remains dry. This is why their desires behind closed doors often feel disconnected, mechanical, or bizarrely transactional. Intimacy is stripped of vulnerability because vulnerability requires an ego strong enough to risk rejection. Since they cannot risk exposure, they turn physical closeness into a performance. Control becomes their primary aphrodisiac. In the quiet hours, when the rest of the world stops watching, they need to feel absolute dominion over their environment. If you are relaxed, unpredictable, or genuinely happy, it threatens their fragile equilibrium. They need to know they hold the strings. This explains the sudden shifts from intense affection to jarring coldness. It is not about passion, it is about power dynamics. By pulling you close and then pushing you away, they force your nervous system to stay locked in a state of high alert. You become addicted to the relief of their return. Their fantasies and private behaviors are often shaped by a deep-seated need to reverse past humiliations. They rewrite narratives in real time, placing themselves in the role of the undisputed sovereign. If you comply, you feed the illusion. If you hesitate, you become the enemy that must be managed. Notice how your deepest insecurities, once shared in confidence, eventually return as ammunition. They study your soft spots not to protect them, but to map the pressure points. In the dark, this tactical mapping becomes even more pronounced, turning moments of supposed closeness into silent additions. The tragedy of the narcissist is that they are utterly terrified of being truly seen. True intimacy demands exposure, and exposure feels like death to a false self. So they create elaborate psychological mazes, ensuring you remain focused on their complex rules while they hide their true hollowness. You thought your empathy could heal them, didn't you? That is the trap. Your kindness was interpreted as compliance, and your patience was used as permission to push further. They do not want a partner, they want an audience that never walks away, no matter how harsh the script becomes. Once you see the mechanics of this behavior, the spell begins to break. It stops looking like romance gone wrong and starts looking like psychological architecture. They are building a prison out of your good intentions, locking the door from the inside while telling you that you hold the key. Then comes the night that changes everything. It usually starts quietly, over nothing at all. A misplaced word, a look that wasn't sufficiently admiring, or a boundary you finally tried to hold. The atmosphere shifts instantly, turning thick and heavy enough to choke the oxygen right out of the room. You watch the mask slip in real time. The warm, engaging partner dissolves, replaced by a cold stranger whose eyes hold absolute contempt. There is no warmth left, only a calculating stillness that tells you danger is near. You realize, with a sudden jolt, that you do not actually know this person. They begin the interrogation. It is not a conversation. It is a relentless courtroom trial where you are guilty before you even open your mouth. Every past mistake is dragged into the present, twisted and magnified until you are drowning in a sea of fabricated guilt you never earned. You try to explain your side, but your words bounce off a wall of impenetrable denial. They intercept your sentences, twist your meaning, and throw your vulnerability back in your face like a grenade. You sit there, stunned by the sheer agility of their cognitive gymnastics, wondering how reality warped so fast. And then the silence drops. A heavy, punishing quiet designed to make you feel like you have committed an unpardonable sin simply by existing independently. They turn their back to you in the bed, weaponizing distance as a physical blow. They want you to squirm, to apologize for breathing. But this time, something inside you refuses to bend. You do not reach out to fix it. You do not whisper an apology to make the tension go away. Instead, you stare at the ceiling, listening to the steady rhythm of their feigned sleep, and you feel a strange, cold clarity washing over your spirit. The illusion has fractured beyond repair. You see the manipulation for what it is. Not a misunderstanding, not a bad mood, but a deliberate strategy to keep you small. The fear that used to grip your chest starts giving way to a profound, sobering disgust. You are sick of the cycle. They sense the shift immediately. Narcissists have an almost supernatural radar for the moment their prey stops believing the performance. Suddenly, the tactics pivot. The coldness evaporates, replaced by frantic, over-the-top sweetness, urgent declarations of love, and desperate attempts to pull you back in. But the magic is gone. Their tears look manufactured. Their promises sound like hollow echoes bouncing off empty walls. You watch them scramble to restore control, and for the first time, you feel completely immune to their theatrics. You are no longer inside the play. You are sitting in the audience. That moment of internal detachment is the turning point of your life. They can lock the doors, dim the lights, and spin their webs of quiet chaos, but they can no longer touch your core. You have looked directly into the dark machinery of their dysfunction, and you survived the revelation. Once the illusion shatters, the environment becomes untenable. The narcissist realizes their grip is slipping, and their desperation turns corrosive. Every interaction becomes a minefield of passive-aggressive jabs, designed to test whether they can break your newly found resolve and pull you back under. They double down on the isolation tactics. Friends are criticized, family members are subtly undermined, and your world shrinks down to the suffocating confines of their approval. They need you dependent because an independent mind is the ultimate existential threat to their fragile, inflated ego. You start noticing the physical toll the stress has taken on your body. Chronic tension in your shoulders, shallow breathing, disrupted sleep, and a persistent knot in your stomach. Your nervous system has been running a marathon in combat boots, and the exhaustion is finally catching up to every cell. They pull out their final, most destructive cards. When charm and guilt fail, they resort to character assassination, rewriting history to anyone who will listen. To the outside world, you are suddenly painted as unstable, difficult, or ungrateful, while they play the long-suffering saint. It hurts to watch people believe the fiction. It stings to realize how easily outsiders swallow the performance, blind to the quiet cruelty that takes place behind closed doors. But you begin to care less about their narrative because keeping your own sanity matters infinitely more than their applause. The financial, emotional, and psychological costs pile up around you like wreckage after a storm. You look at the life you built to accommodate their endless demands and barely recognize it. You sacrificed your peace, your boundaries, and your joy to feed a ghost that could never be satisfied. Yet, within that wreckage, a fierce determination takes root. Every attempt they make to tear you down only exposes how weak their foundation truly is. Their power relied entirely on your compliance. Without it, their intimidation is just noise. Loud, persistent noise, but powerless nonetheless. You stop explaining yourself. When they launch into another circular argument, you simply walk away or meet them with a calm, unbothered silence. That silence is more terrifying to them than any scream because it signals the death of their supply. You are starving the beast by refusing to fight. The house grows colder, the mask permanently warped beyond recognition. They realize they can no longer break your spirit, so they begin planning their exit or preparing for the final discard. Let them go. Their departure is not a loss. It is the evacuation of a toxic waste site. You stand amidst the ruins of a chapter you never should have entered, but you are breathing on your own terms. The fog is clearing. The heavy, oppressive weight in the bedroom is lifting, replaced by the crisp, clean air of reality. You are finally ready to reclaim your sovereignty. Healing does not happen in a dramatic explosion. It happens in the quiet rebuilding of your daily life. It starts the moment you reclaim your mornings, drinking your coffee without scanning the room for someone else's mood. You are learning what it feels like to inhabit your own skin safely. You begin to unlearn the hypervigilance. That jumpy instinct that expected a crisis around every corner starts to fade, replaced by a deep, grounded trust in your own judgment. When you make a mistake now, you forgive yourself instead of bracing for an invisible executioner. Solitude, once a terrifying reminder of their rejection, transforms into your sanctuary. You realize that being alone is infinitely better than sharing a room with someone who makes you feel invisible. Your own company is peaceful, steady, and entirely free of emotional landmines. You start rebuilding the friendships and passions you abandoned to keep the peace. Every laugh shared with someone authentic, every creative spark you fan back into flame, acts like sunlight hitting a dark room. You are piecing yourself back together, stronger and wiser than before. Looking back at the darkness, you no longer feel shame for staying. You feel profound compassion for the version of you who had to survive it. You did the best you could with the tools you had, trapped in a psychological maze designed by a master manipulator. Give yourself grace. The dark bedroom's secrets no longer hold any power over you. They are just shadows on a wall, stripped of their terror now that you understand the light. You see the narcissist clearly now, not as a giant, but as a frightened, hollow child rattling cages to feel powerful. You step outside and feel the cool night air on your face, realizing how long you held your breath inside that toxic dynamic. Your heart beats with an independent, steady rhythm. You are not broken, you are forged. The pain you endured taught you the absolute value of your own boundaries. Empowerment is not the absence of scars. It is the proof that you survived a fire and refused to let it consume your soul. You walk forward with clearer eyes, a sharper intuition, and a profound refusal to ever let anyone compromise your peace again. You are the author of the chapters ahead, and the pen is finally back in your hand. No more walking on eggshells. No more decoding mixed signals. Just an open road, a quiet mind, and the brilliant, hard-won freedom of belonging entirely to yourself. The night has finally broken, and as the first rays of morning light touch your window, you realize the most important truth of all. They never owned your spirit, and they never will.